Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Drama on this Friday with Orson Welles and the Lives of Harry Lime, the prequel to the Third Man movies from 73 years ago, March 7th, 1952. Also, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring John Stanley and Alfred Shirley from 1948. This Is Your FBI from 1952. X-1 from 1956, and A Gun for Dinosaur, and an episode of Claudia. That's all I had here on this Friday. This is the 7th day of March, 66th day of the year, 299 days till we get to the end of 2025. Alexander Graham Bell granted a patent on this date in 1876 for an invention he called the telephone.
Here at the phone company, we handle 84 billion calls a year, serving everyone from presidents and kings to the scum of the earth. So we realize that every so often you can't get a call through. Perhaps your phone goes out of order for no apparent reason. Maybe you've been charged for a call you didn't make. We don't care. Watch this. Just lost Peoria. You see, here in this computer room, we have a matrix of multi-billion-dollar space-age technology that is so sophisticated that even we can't handle it, but that's your problem, isn't it? So the next time you complain about your phone service, why don't you try using 2 Dixie cups with a string? We don't care, we don't have to. We're the phone company.
The very funny Lily Tomlin as Ernestine, the telephone operator. Funny stuff. Alexander Graham Bell patenting the telephone on this date in 1876. In 1965, in Selma, Alabama, state troopers, local law enforcement forcefully broke up a group of 600 civil rights marchers. The event televised and was dubbed Bloody Sunday.
It'll be detrimental to your safety to continue this march, and I'm saying that this is an unlawful assembly. You're ordered to disperse, go home, or go to your church. This march will not continue.
Sheriff Jim Clark in Selma, Alabama on this date in 1965. Premiering off-Broadway on this date in 1967, the musical version of the cartoon hit, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Starring as Charlie Brown in the initial production, a young man who would become much beloved in America as Radar O'Reilly in MASH. Yes, Gary Burghoff was the first Charlie Brown. In 1969, Golda Meir elected the first female prime minister of Israel. The ultimately disappointing comet Kohoutek discovered on this date in 1973. In 1987, Mike Tyson added the WBA World Heavyweight Boxing Championship to his WBC one when he beat James Smith after a 12-round fight in Las Vegas. 1994, the Supreme Court ruled in Campbell versus Acuff-Rose Music, parodies of an original work are generally covered by the doctrine of fair use. Of course, the fair use doctrine is something that YouTube doesn't understand. Yeah. A gunman took 8 people hostage on this date in 1994 in the Salt Lake City Public Library hostage incident. And in 2005, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice named John Bolton, the country's top arms control official, the next U.S. envoy to the United Nations.
President Bush intends to nominate John Bolton to be our next ambassador to the United Nations. The President and I have asked John to do this work because he knows how to get things done.
Bolton replaced former Senator John Danforth of Missouri, who had resigned in January. Bolton served from August 2005 until December 2006 as a recess appointee by President George W. Bush. He resigned in December 2006 when the recess appointment would have otherwise ended because he was unlikely to win the Senate confirmation, he served as the National Security Advisor under President Trump. 2006, Apple granted the patent to the iPod. Reversing course on this date in 2011, President Obama approved the resumption of military trials at the U.S. prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, ending a 2-year ban. And it was a year ago today, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed found guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the death of Helena Hutchins on the set of the movie Rust. The first time someone been found guilty for causing a death on a movie set. Gutierrez-Reed was the one who prepared the pistol that was used by Alec Baldwin. And Baldwin ultimately removed from, felt to be cause in it, that Gutierrez-Reed was the one who had prepared the pistol improperly with a bullet instead of a blank. All right, passing away on this date in history, the companion to Gertrude Stein, Alice B. Toklas. Yes, there was an Alice B. Toklas. Politician Jacob Javits. Transsexual actor Divine. Film director Stanley Kubrick. Country musicians Pee Wee King. Pianist and bandleader Frankie Carl. Singer-songwriter Claude King. Wolverton Mountain. And actor and singer Steve Lawrence. Steve Lawrence passed away a year ago today. Now, birthdays on this date include the founder of the Kansas City Star newspaper, patron of the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art, William Rockhill Nelson, French composer Maurice Ravel, the U.S. Marine showed in the photograph of the raising of the flag on Iwo Jima, René Gagnon, also comedian and actor, the very funny Alan Seuss, Willard Scott, who was best known for his television forecasts on the Today Show, and Tammy Faye Baker, all born on this date in history.
Hi, this is Jeff Foxworthy. It is now time for the birthday announcements. The following people are now officially older than dirt.
By the way, YouTube still continues to block many of our podcasts over their failure to understand what the principle of fair use is. They don't block us over the shows. They block us over some of the bits we use here in the news. Clips of musicians are no longer permitted, so we're dropping as many of them as we have to, just to make sure we still get up on YouTube. Racer Janet Guthrie raced in Indianapolis 500, Daytona 500. Janet Guthrie, 87 today. Hill Street Blues, Daniel J. Travante, 85. The bass guitarist for the Zombies. Laid down so many of those great bass lines for their music. She's Not There and the like. Chris White, 82 today. The Jay Giles Band's Peter Wolf is 79. The Isley Brothers' Ernest Isley is 73. From Malcolm in the Middle and best known for Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston is 69.
What's your name? Heisenberg.
Bryan Cranston, 69 today. Singer Taylor Dane, I'll Always Love You, 63 years old today. From The Mummy, The Lovely Bones, and a movie called The Lobster, Rachel Weisz is 55.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so hungry. I'll eat it right away.
It's a bigger flashlight.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's so big. I thought it was a rabbit.
From the movie The Lobster, Rachel Weisz is 55 years old today. From The Office, Jenna Fisher is 51.
Michael Scott's Thunder Mifflin Scranton Meredith Palmer Memorial Celebrity Rabies Awareness Fun Run Race for the Cure. This is Pam.
A crazy television program, The Office, Jenna Fisher, 51 today. From Bones, TJ Thine is 50. From The 70s Show and Orange is the New Black, Laura Prepon is 45. From Tooth Fairy and Tropical Thunder, Brandon T. Jackson is 41. And poet Amanda Gorman is 27.
We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is.
From President Biden's inauguration, Amanda Gorman, 27 today. Those just a few of the people celebrating the 7th day of March as their birthday. And if this happens to be your birthday...
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
We'll go back to what we think was the first prequel in radio. It was the prequel to the motion picture The Third Man, The Lives of Harry Lime. As Harry Lime died in the Third Man, we'll go back 73 years next here on this Friday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
This is Debbie Reynolds. If you've been wondering what you can do to fight communism personally from your own home, there is something you can do. Support Radio Free Europe, the station built and financed by the contributions of the American public to the crusade for freedom. Radio Free Europe is one Cold War operation the communists fear and attack constantly. Support Radio Free Europe. Send your truth dollars to Crusade for Freedom, care of your local postmaster.
Now we go back to March 7th, 1952, 73 years ago today. Orson Welles, The Lives of Harry Lime, Turnabout is foul play.
Presenting Orson Welles as the Third Man. The Lives of Harry Lime, the fabulous stories of the immortal character originally created in the motion picture The Third Man, with zither music by Anton Karas.
In my youth, after a serious study of all the good causes that can lay just claim to a man's attention, I decided to work for the best cause of all, the cause of Harry Lime. But though I subsequently spent my life performing pecuniary sleight-of-hand tricks, it cannot be said of me that I dealt in unattractive merchandise. Whenever I sold a gold brick, it was a highly polished article indeed. Perhaps you'd like to hear about one such commercial venture.
And now, Orson Welles as Harry Lime, the Third Man, in today's story, Turnabout is Foul Play.
It was in Bern, Switzerland, where a number of people in the International set had come for a half-year's rest to make them fit for a half-year of weekending. I was with these people, but not by any means of them, for I'm well known to be a man of sober and industrious habits who never stops working for a minute, especially in places where the wealthy have congregated with loosened purse strings. The man I was doing business with was Hans Krapft, a German industrialist. Herr Krapft didn't know that I was doing business with him. Herr Krapft never saw me, as a matter of fact. I used to sit on the veranda of the hotel, just at the point where it made a turn, and around the turn, Herr Krapft would sit talking to let's call him a partner of mine, Kurt Mannheim. I listened, and with interest always, for I am never bored by my work.
I am disappointed in you, Herr Mannheim.
Oh, why should that be, Herr Kopp?
You have told me that you know all the people who come here. You have told me that you would be able soon to find some solid commercial opportunity for a man of my genius. But the schemes you have come up with...
I have merely been filling in the time until something really interesting comes along, Herr Kopp.
It will never come along.
But it has come along, Herr Kopp.
It has?
Today.
What is it?
It would take a great deal of capital.
I am Hans Kropp. There's no lack of capital.
Very well. Bill Foster registered here today.
So?
Bill Foster is an English representative of the United Nations.
So?
He's in charge of United Nations plans for the industrialization of Western Europe.
That is interesting.
I thought it might be Herr Kropp.
If I could get to a man like that...
If you could get to a man like that, if you could learn what plans the United Nations has, you could build a fortune greater than the one you had before the war, buying the right property, going into the right business in the right place.
You do not have to teach me the alphabet of commerce. This Foster, is he corruptible?
Oh, he's already corrupt.
Good. Can I trust him?
If you pay.
There will be no difficulty then.
Except that he will not trust you.
What do you mean?
He is cautious. He deals with people he knows.
Don't you know him?
Not that well.
Then your information is absolutely useless.
Not quite. I know someone who does know him.
Who?
Harry Lime.
And who is Harry Lime?
Surely you have seen him around this hotel. Tall, distinguished.
And Foster would do business with this Harry Lime?
Without hesitation, without question.
And how can I be sure that Harry Lime will not cheat me?
You can be sure of that. What you cannot be sure of, Herr Kropp, is that he will help you at all.
Why not?
For the same reason that he will not cheat you.
You have strange and disgusting acquaintances, Herr Mannheim.
Harry Lime is incorruptible.
Incorruptible? This incorruptible person is the only man in Bern who could act as a go-between with Foster?
That is correct.
Very well. We shall try to corrupt Harry Lime.
So, Herr Kropp was going to try to corrupt me. Being a highly moral man, I've always delighted in biting biters, sinning against sinners, and fleecing crooks. So, I looked forward to meeting Herr Kropp with a pleasure I was wise enough to conceal when the next day I allowed Kurt and Herr Kropp to run into me in the lobby of the hotel.
Mr. Lime, how are you, Mr. Lime?
Herr Mannheim, isn't it?
Yes, and I would like to present Herr Kropp.
How do you do, Mr. Lime?
How do you do?
Hans Kropp. You have heard of him, surely.
Oh, yes, I've heard of you, Herr Kropp. I heard an account of your trial. Sorry your friend had to die.
My friend?
Yes, a chap named Adolf Hitler.
Oh, you are too harsh, Mr. Lime. I did only what any patriotic businessman under Hitler would have done.
That's probably true. I've many times noticed that patriotism blunts the sense of smell.
Mr. Lime, perhaps you and Herr Kropp could find some crown for mutual esteem.
We try. Perhaps we can find something, but do we have to try?
Well, I was just suggesting...
You were just suggesting that since Herr Kropp and I are guests in the same hotel, we can at least be civil to each other, is that it?
Oh, I'm sure that is what Herr Mannheim meant.
Well, that's the way it'll be. We can be civil to each other, Herr Kropp. We can smile, we can bow, but at a distance, please, because my flesh is sensitive to knives in the hands of those who slap me on the back. Good day. Now Herr Kropp was sure that I was the incorruptible public official that my friend Kurt Mannheim had represented me to be, and if I continued to let him think so, it's only because as a point of honor I never tell the truth to liars. Later the same day, I listened once more from my station just at the turn of the veranda to a conversation between Kurt and Kropp.
This man Lime is going to be difficult.
I told you how it would be.
There is no other way to get at Foster?
No other way that I know of.
What are Lime's weaknesses?
He has none.
Gambling?
Huh? Lime.
Does he drink?
He holds it when he does.
Does he like books or plays, operas, symphonies? Does he have a secret vice? Is there anything at all in his background that
Herr
you can...
Kropp, let me assure you, I know the techniques of breaking down a man. I have investigated carefully. I have found nothing.
You say he is a bachelor?
Yes.
Doesn't he get lonely?
Who knows?
Now, a woman could possibly
difficult.
Why is that?
This man likes ultra-respectable women.
Then an ultra-respectable woman could...
An ultra-respectable woman who will do your bidding?
It is difficult. I wonder...
Yes?
I wonder if Mr. Lime would like my daughter.
Herr Kropp, you'd use your own daughter on a job like this?
Oh, I would not let her know what I was about. I could not let her know. You know why?
Why?
Because she is like this man Lime. Exactly like him. She is toughish, she is proper, respectable, she is moral, she preaches.
Oh, she does sound like Lime.
Yes, and if Lime likes, I may be able to get around him. It will be a good joke on my daughter, eh, Kurt? She preaches at me all the time. Now she is going to help me.
Listening there on the veranda, I was appalled. I'd played my part all too well. Now I was to be wooed. Not in any of the ways I could have suggested myself to Harecroft, not with money or entertainment, or by having a lewd and lovely dancing girl smile seductively upon me. No, I was to be thrown into the company of an earnest, bookish, sniffing do-gooder with glasses, most likely, and acne. A joyless drab who would in all probability avoid the use of the complexion aid she would so sorely need. And I would have to act up to this gargoyle. Well, business was business. Kurt informed me that I had 2 days reprieve, for Frida, which was the creature's name, would not arrive until Friday. I spent those 2 days in prayer, but by no means in fasting. And when Friday was all too soon upon us, I stationed myself in the lobby and waited to be accosted by Herr Croft.
Mr. Lime!
Oh, hello there, Croft.
When my friend Mannheim introduced us the other day, Mr. Lime, you were good enough to say that you felt we should be civil.
Yes, I did, at a distance.
I understand. I am presuming on you now, Mr. Lime, asking you to understand that I am not the bad fellow I am supposed to be. Asking you, as the least, to be pleasant to my daughter. She has just come to stay here with me.
I'd be very happy to be pleasant to your daughter.
She is here. You would care to meet her?
Certainly.
Oh, Frida! Frida!
Yes, Papa?
Well, the girl who tripped toward us was not the girl I had been expecting. No glasses, no acne, no need of complexion aids. She was young and lithe, with corn blonde hair and rather serious blue eyes set in a face all peaches and cream. I'm afraid I staggered my way through the introductions.
Perhaps you two young people would like to go into the patio or go for a hike? Is that what you call it?
Papa, are you not presuming? Mr. Lime may have other uses for his time.
Oh, no, not at all. I should be honored if you'd come with me into the patio, Fräulein Croft.
Fine.
Patio.
I have some business to attend to. I will see you at dinner, Frida.
I must apologize for Papa.
Oh, why?
He so obviously threw me at you.
Oh, no, not at all.
I don't know what to think. I'm very embarrassed.
If you're a sample of his throwing arm, he should be with the New York Yankees, honey.
You're very gallant.
I'm very much smitten.
I do not ordinarily approve of my father's friends.
Fine, because I'm not a friend of his. The fact is, I don't approve of your father very much, Fred.
I don't blame you.
But we shouldn't let such things make any difference to us, should we? The patio?
By all means, Mr. Lime.
In a moment, Orson Welles returns as Harry Lime, the third man. And now, Orson Welles as Harry Lime, the third man, continues in today's story, Turnabout is Foul Play.
Frida and I danced and skied and dined and walked together every day and every evening. My father beamed whenever I called at his suite for Frida and made no attempt to approach me. He wanted to be quite certain that I was hooked before he started to reel me in, and as far as I was concerned, I didn't mind waiting for him to come to the point. Not when I was constantly in such lovely company. It was Frida herself who finally brought things to a head. One night when we were sitting over coffee after dinner in the corner of the hotel lobby.
Harry?
Yeah?
We hadn't spoken much about my father.
No, we haven't.
I know you disapprove of him.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I do.
It's all right. I do, too. And I think I can speak frankly to you.
Well, I just hope you could, Frida.
He's up to something.
You mean the sort of thing he used to do before he went to prison?
Yes, I'm sure of it. He's carrying 30,000 English pounds in a money belt.
30,000
Yes.
English pounds?
I counted it when he was bathing yesterday. And Harry, I wouldn't bother you with this, but I think it has something to do with you.
With me? How could that be?
You're an official of the American government, aren't you?
No, of course not.
Yes, you are. I heard my father talking to that Kurt Mannheim about you. I know it's supposed to be a secret, and I wanted to warn you. My father knows you're with the American government.
Well, thank you, Frida. I don't know how he discovered my secret,
He
but...
discovers everything. He wants something from you. I feel so ashamed. I'm afraid he introduced us because he thought that you might... Well, that you would like me.
Well, if that's so, darling, I must tell you he was right.
Well, how are the young people, huh?
Hello, Herr Cropt.
You both look so serious.
Papa, sit down a minute.
Yeah?
I've been telling Harry that you're up to something, well...
Shall we say, unsavory, Herr Cropt?
The things one has to bear from one's moral and suspicious children, Mr. Lime. Frida will not let me forget the mistakes I made when I was younger. What she says is quite untrue, of course.
Is it? Then why are you carrying 30,000 pounds in your money belt?
You have been searching my clothes, Frida?
I won't apologize.
No, you will not apologize. You will only condemn.
You haven't explained what you're doing with that much money.
Well, you know the international refugee group you are so interested in.
Yes?
The drive opens next week. I was going to try to bring joy to your heart by giving the money to them.
I do not believe you.
I have listened to enough, Frida. You may go to your...
No, that's the most ridiculous
Never
thing
mind, Harry. I'm a dutiful daughter. I will go, Papa. Goodbye.
She is a dutiful daughter, Mr. Lime. In some ways.
You brought her up in the old-fashioned way, I suppose?
Exactly.
Then, since I intend to marry her, I suppose I must let you know it before I let her know it. Seems silly, doesn't it?
She would never marry without my saying that she could.
I'm asking your permission, then.
Mr. Lime, do you know Bill Foster, a United Nations man staying here at the hotel?
Yeah.
I am anxious to meet him.
Well, that ought to be quite easy.
I am anxious also to be recommended
Let's
to
be
him.
plain-spoken, Herr Croft. I know that Bill Foster has in his possession the UN plans for the industrialization of Western Europe. You want to bribe him, isn't that it?
But you have to put it that way, Mr. Lime.
I'm one of those efficient Americans you hear about, Herr Croft. I like to save time.
Very well, I wish to bribe him. Now, about my daughter, Frida. It is too bad that she would never marry unless her papa said she might.
Now you're bribing me.
Oh, not at all, Mr. Lime. Of course, I would want her to marry some person who was friendly to her.
Okay, you don't have to spell it out, Herr Croft.
Take your time, Mr. Lime.
I love your daughter very much. I want very much to marry her.
So?
Well, I'll get in touch with Bill Foster for you.
Foster here.
Bill, this is Harry Lime. Everything's all set.
Crops Britain?
Hard. Got some impressive-looking plans made up?
I've got 'em.
Okay, I'll bring Croft around this afternoon. So long.
Bye.
That was that. We were ready to take Croft's 30,000 pounds, and if I had any regret at all, it was that I wouldn't see Frida again. Then I've always found in such cases that there are other girls. Wherever you go, you find other girls to take the place of the girls you don't dare to get in touch with again. The world is full of wonderful things, including the money that men like Croft are willing to pay for a few phony papers. So I brought Croft to Bill Foster's room that afternoon.
It's a great pleasure, Mr. Foster. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time.
Then we can get right down to business. Harry tells me your errand isn't philanthropic.
Harry wouldn't tell you anything if it weren't for a rag and a bone and a hank of hair.
He likes my daughter, Mr. Foster.
Yes, he told me about that. Now, I understand you want access to the UN plans for the industrialization of Western Europe.
A blunt man, I like that.
I can let you have them for 48 hours. For a price.
Herr Croft has money.
Yeah.
How much?
Shall we say 10,000 pounds?
You can make millions with these plans.
15,000.
Herr Croft, you know how distasteful this is to me. I myself wouldn't touch a penny of your money. I have no respect for either one of you, but in the context of this crooked business, I find myself unhappily associated with you, and I cannot permit one of you to cheat the other.
Oh, don't worry, Harry, old boy. I wouldn't take him up on an offer of 15,000. I'd want 20 at least.
I will meet that price. 20,000 pounds.
30,000.
He said 20. Isn't that good enough?
Oh, 20,000 is good enough, all right, but you're carrying 30,000. That's even better.
If you're carrying that much, that's the amount I want.
Disgusting. I hope you know, Mr. Lime, you have just cost me 10,000 pounds.
Well, why don't you look at it this way, Croft? You haven't so much lost 10,000 as you have gained a son.
All right. I shall want to take the plans and have my experts examine them before I pay any money at all.
Is that so? I shall want the money before I let those plans out of my possession.
Isn't Mr. Lime's word good enough for you?
Mr. Lime must not guarantee that you will return the plans to me if you got them without paying for them.
Now tell him, Mr. Lime. Tell him that...
I can't tell him what I don't know, old man. You're not particularly honest, Aircraft. You might take the plans. After all, you might copy them and return them to Foster, if you return them at all, without payment.
Yes.
It would be like you. Even be good business, I suppose.
But I must have my experts examine them. I must know what I am buying.
Aircraft's point of view is reasonable, too, Foster, you know.
Well, he won't get the plans till I get the money.
Wait a minute. We both want this deal to go through. There must be a... Yes. We are both convinced of Mr. Lime's honesty, are we not?
I am.
And I.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You give me the plans, and I give the money to Mr. Lime to hold until my men have examined them.
No. I was willing to bring you two together, but I don't want to have anything to do with the money.
It seems like a reasonable proposition to me, Harry.
The money is tainted.
Nobody is asking you to keep the money.
Well, I should hope not.
Oh, we just want you should hold it.
Well, I don't like the idea
But that's
at all.
unreasonable, Harry. You're in it this far.
Yes, I'm in it this far. Goodness knows.
Here's the money. Take it.
It was a great pleasure to stand there looking unhappy and reluctant and to have that great pig of a Croft force the money on me. Well, I finally allowed his entreaties to prevail and stuffed the 30,000 pounds into my pockets. Foster then produced the completely spurious plans and blueprints, and Croft took them and left. Now we had to act fast. Foster gathered up his luggage. He was all packed, of course. We went immediately to my room, where my luggage awaited us. There was always the danger that Croft might see us in the lobby, so we took the time to arrange 2 envelopes, one with the money in it and one containing strips of newspapers. The envelopes looked alike, so if by chance we should find it necessary to return the money to Croft, we could switch the envelopes on him. Now we were ready to go. But at that moment, there was a knock at the door.
What's that?
I don't know. Nothing would answer it.
Harry!
Oh, come in, Frida. This is Mr. Foster.
How do you do?
I was just about to bring him to the station, Frida.
Harry and Mr. Foster, here are the plans my father got from you.
I don't get this.
I heard my father talking to some of his men on the telephone, telling them to get right over and examine these plans. I knew he couldn't have come by them honestly, so I took them.
Well, Foster, you'll be late for your train. You'd better go. I won't be able to help you now.
Well, all right.
Here, don't forget this bag.
Oh, no, of course. You know where I'm staying.
Oh, yes, I know.
All right, toodaloo. And thanks for the plans, miss. We won't prosecute your father.
Now, Harry, what about the money my father gave you to hold?
Well, you know about that, too?
Yes.
Frida, I swear it was for love of you. I never wanted to get mixed up in this.
I know all that. Papa chuckled over that with Kurt Mannheim. I heard him. I listen all the time. Now, what about the money?
The money, yes. Do you know, I think we ought to teach your father a lesson and not return this money to him.
I'm glad you feel that way, because that was my thought, too.
Oh, it was?
Yes. We'll use that money as he pretended he was going to use it. We'll give it to the refugee group. Harry, don't you think that's a wonderful idea?
Oh, yes, it's perfectly wonderful. She was looking at me, and she had her hand out, and I knew I had to give her the money. But the preparations I'd made to fool her father would be equally useful with her, I was sure. I took out the envelope containing the money. I handed it to her, had her count it, put it back in the envelope, and seal it. Then I spoke casually about a picture on my wall. When she looked toward it, I did the old switcheroo with the envelopes. Both envelopes were now in my bureau, but the one with the money in it was under a magazine. I strolled casually into the bathroom, combed my hair, and when I came back, she picked up the envelope that was lying in plain sight, and we left for the offices of the refugee organization.
This will teach Papa exactly the kind of lesson he needs.
I was afraid that she would allow the officials of the refugee group to open the envelope in our presence. But she was just as willing as I was simply to leave it and go outside. So everything was okay. And now to get rid of her.
Are you going back to the hotel, Harry?
No, I'll have to leave you. I'll see you tonight, Frida.
All right. But, Harry, one moment. Kiss me.
It's a pleasure. I kissed her. It was a pleasure. I was kissing her goodbye, so it was a lingering kiss. Then it seemed she wanted to borrow my pen and some paper. She wrote something.
Here, take this. Don't look at it unless you do not see me tonight. Do not ask me what I mean. If you do not see me tonight, read this. Otherwise...
I took it. We parted. When I was able, I went back to the hotel, checked out, and caught a night train. It wasn't until I was well on my way that I thought again of a note. I took it out and, rather expecting to be amused, started to read it. But as I read, I grew more and more horrified. In my mind's ear, I could hear her voice reciting every syllable of that note.
Harry, darling, I love you. But I have been the daughter of a criminal. I cannot be the wife of another criminal. Yes, I know that you are that. I even knew that you switched envelopes on me. And when you went into the washroom, I switched them back. Don't feel too sad about losing the money. The refugees need it. Love. Frida.
Harry Lime will be back in just a moment. And now, Harry Lime.
A long time ago, when I was a little boy, I got into a fight with another kid. He gave me a terrible beating. That was the worst moment in my life, but this was the second. However, one must be brave. One must take the bad with the good. Suppose it might have been worse. Suppose I was married to an honest girl like Frida. The very thought sends a shudder down my spine. So long now.
"73 years ago, March 7th, 1952, The Lives of Harry Lime on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Up next, we'll go back to 1948 for an episode of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
Your contribution of $10 or $6.95 for the budget relief package will send more relief overseas than the same money spent any other way. To help people in foreign countries with food or clothing, send your check to Nonprofit Care, New York. That's Care, New York. Send your check, your name and address, and full particulars about who's to get the package. Care will do the rest.
The work of CARE continues to this day. Go online to care.org. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back to 1948. John Stanley and Alfred Shirley, starring as Holmes and Watson in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
From New York City, the makers of Clipper Craft Clothes for Men and 1,036 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Tonight's story, The Adventure of the 6 Napoleons.
Come in, Mr. Harris, and take your usual chair there on the other side of the fireplace. Now, before we become further involved in the adventure which had to do with 6 Napoleons and a rather gory murder, Suppose you say a few well-chosen words on a subject on which you have become almost as much of an authority as I am on the subject of the exploits of Sherlock Holmes.
With pleasure, Dr. Watson. As a matter of fact, it's almost as much of a pleasure to recommend Clippercraft clothes as it is to wear them. Say, are you in the market for a new suit of clothes? Well, Clippercraft believes you're entitled to the very most for your money, even today in this era of high prices. That's good business for you, naturally, and it's good business for us, too. We've planned it that way by applying scientific American production methods to the fine old craft of clothes making. It's the great Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 1,036 of the nation's finest stores from coast to coast, providing year-round economies in manufacturing and distribution costs, and delivering the savings to you. That's why at a friendly independent store in your community, you get beautifully tailored, fine-fitting, expensive-looking Clippercraft suits for only $40 and $45. Top coats, too, in fine coverts and worsted gabardines for only $40 and $45, and sport jackets at only $26.50. The values are downright amazing. Compare them tomorrow with clothes selling for many dollars more. And now, Dr. Watson, to return to your specialty, the adventures of Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Yes, I must say it's an enthusiasm I seem to share with a great many friends and critics. As you probably know, there's a collection of erudite gentlemen all over the United States of America who are ardent Sherlock Holmes admirers, and who call themselves the Baker Street Irregulars. Why, would you believe it? They even argue with me about the accuracy of some of my stories.
Do they ever win the arguments, Dr. Watson?
You know, Holmes always said I had a weakness for embroidering a tale. But that's neither here nor there. So here's tonight's adventure, the 6 Napoleons.
6 Napoleons? Why, good grief, Doctor. I should think one gentleman of that caliber was all the world could stand at a time. Or is it the name of an acrobatic troupe?
No, Mr. Harris, it's something even more unusual. As you may have gathered, Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard was a frequent visitor of ours in the old Baker Street days. Between him and Sherlock Holmes there was a friendly rivalry. His calls were welcome because they enabled us to keep in touch with things at Scotland Yard. In return for this news, Holmes was sometimes able, without any active interference, to give some valuable hint on the solution of a crime.
The word isn't sometimes, Dr. Watson. It's frequently.
Possibly. On the particular evening I'm referring to, Lestrade had come in wearing a preoccupied look. He spoke casually of the weather and the newspapers. Then he fell silent, puffing thoughtfully on one of his atrocious cigars. Holmes looked at him keenly.
Nothing remarkable on hand, I suppose, Lestrade?
No, nothing in particular.
Then tell me about it.
Well, Holmes, there's no use denying there is something on my mind.
Fancy that.
Quiet, Watson. Well, Lestrade, out with it. Has the Bank of England been threatened, or has someone stolen the doormat at Scotland Yard?
Well, as a matter of fact, the business is so absurd that I hesitate to bother you about it. On the other hand, though trivial, it is undoubtedly queer, and I know you have a taste for anything that's out of the common. In my humble opinion, it comes more in Dr. Watson's line than in ours.
Oh, you mean disease?
Well, madness, anyway, and a queer sort of madness, too. You'd hardly think anyone living in this day and age would have such a hatred of Napoleon that he felt compelled to break any image of him that he saw.
Is that all? That sort of nonsense is no business of mine.
Exactly, that's just what I said, but when the man commits burglary in order to satisfy his craving for breaking images, that takes it out of the doctor's province and into ours.
Burglary, eh? That's more interesting. Give us the details, that's a good chap.
Well, so far there have been 4 cases. Numbers 1 and 2 were reported 4 days ago. It was at the shop of Morse Hudson, who sells pictures and statues in the Kennington Road. The assistant had left the shop for a few moments when he heard a loud crash, hurried back and found 2 plaster busts of Napoleon lying shivered into fragments. He rushed out into the road, but couldn't find the culprit, although several passers-by declared they had noticed a man run out of the shop.
How much were the busts worth?
Only a few shillings.
Well, I thought you said there was a robbery. That's just one of those senseless acts of hooliganism which are becoming more and more prevalent.
The 3rd and 4th cases were more serious.
Yes?
Yes. They occurred only last night. In Kennington Road, and within a few hundred yards of Morse Hudson's shop, lives Dr. Barnacut, a well-known medical practitioner.
By Jove, yes, I've heard of him. He has one of the largest practices on the south side of the Thames.
Don't interrupt, Watson.
Well, his residence and principal consulting rooms are in Kennington Road, but he has a branch surgery at Lower Buxton Road, 2 miles away. Dr. Barnacut's an enthusiastic admirer of Napoleon and had recently purchased from Morse Hudson 2 duplicate plaster casts of the famous head of Napoleon by the French sculptor Devine. One of these he placed in his home, and one in the surgery in Buxton Road.
Well,
when Dr. Barnacut came down to breakfast this morning, he was astonished to find that the house had been broken into during the night, and still more astonished to discover that the only thing taken was the plaster head of Napoleon. It had been carried out and shattered against the garden wall.
This is beginning to be interesting. And the fourth case?
At 12 o'clock, when Dr. Barnacut arrived at his surgery, he found the window broken and fragments of the fourth bust strewn all over the room. And there's no clue as to the criminal's identity. Those are the facts, Mr. Holmes.
Singular, not to say grotesque. Were the 2 busts smashed in Dr. Barnacut's rooms exact duplicates of the ones destroyed in Morse Hudson's shop?
They were taken from the same mold.
That's a coincidence, eh, Holmes?
Yes, and it tells against the theory that the man who breaks these busts is influenced by a general hatred of Napoleon.
How do you make that out, Mr. Holmes?
Considering how many hundreds of statues of the great emperor must exist in London, it's too much to suppose that a promiscuous iconoclast would chance to begin with 4 specimens from the same mold.
I thought that way myself at first, but on the other hand, this Morse Hudson's the only purveyor of busts in that part of London, and these 4 were the only ones of Napoleon that have been in his shop for years. Therefore, it seems logical that a local fanatic would begin with them. What do you think, Dr. Watson?
Well, there are no limits to the possibilities of monomania, Lestrade. For example, there is the condition which the French psychologists call the idée fixe, which may be trifling in character and accompanied by complete sanity in every other way. A man who had read deeply about Napoleon might conceivably form such an idée fixe and, under its influence, be capable of any fantastic outrage.
No, it won't do, my dear Watson. It won't do.
Oh, why not?
No idée fixe would enable your interesting monomaniac to find out where these busts are situated.
All right, then, how do you explain it?
I don't attempt to do so, yet. But one thing is obvious. There's nothing abnormal about this bust smasher. There's too much method in his eccentric proceedings for that.
In what way?
But consider. In the Barnacut house, where any sound might arouse the family, the bust was taken outside before being broken. Whereas in the surgery, where there was less danger of an alarm, it was smashed where it stood. The affair seems absurdly trifling, and yet some of my most classic cases have had the least promising beginnings. You'll remember, Watson, how the dreadful business of the Abernethy family was first brought to my notice by the depth which the parsley had sunk into the butter on a hot day. I can't afford to smile at your broken bust, Lestrade. On the contrary, Hello, what's that?
The front doorbell, of course. For a great detective, you do have your obtuse moments, Holmes.
Naturally, I know it's the front doorbell. What I want to know is why it's ringing in the middle of the night. Come in. Hello, Mrs. Hudson. What's the matter?
A policeman downstairs, sir, says Mr. Lestrade is wanted right away.
What's up now?
He said as how I was to tell you there'd been another bust busted. He said you'd know what he meant.
Becoming an epidemic.
Confounded, why couldn't they have waited till morning to rout me out?
He says you're to come right away because this time there's a murder.
Well, Mr. Harris, naturally, Holmes and I threw on our hats. I picked up my service revolver, and we dashed down the stairs with Lestrade panting behind us. Fortunately, a policeman had a cab waiting. We piled in hurriedly and drove off to Pitt Street, the scene of the crime. Holmes, Lestrade, and I dismissed our cab at the corner of the street. It was obvious that news of the murder had got around.
Here we are, Holmes, number 131 Pitt Street. That must be the house where the crime was committed.
Yes, and a first-class murder it must have been. Nothing less would draw such a crowd in the middle of the night. Notice the look of horrified delight in that messenger boy's face.
Here, let us through. Let us through, I say. We're from Scotland Yard.
Oh, it's the police.
Please. That's it.
Come in, gentlemen, come in. Ah, Mr. Lestrade, thank heaven you got here at last.
Well, if it isn't Mr. Horace Harker of the Central Press Syndicate.
It's an extraordinary thing, Lestrade. All my life I've been collecting other people's news. And now that a real piece of news has come my own way, I'm so confused and bothered that I can't put two words together. If I'd come in here as a journalist, I should have interviewed myself and had 2 columns in every evening paper.
Mr. Harker...
you remember when the Stand fell in Doncaster? Well, I was the only journalist in the Stand, and my journal was the only one that had no account of it, for I was too shaken to write it. And now I'll be too late again with a terrible murder done on my own doorstep.
You'd better tell us just what happened.
Wait a minute, I'll call my wife. She was with me. Minnie! Minnie! The police have come.
Oh, God be praised. What a night we've had. I was just saying to Horace, this is what comes of staying up late. If we'd been safe in our bed, we never should have heard the commotion.
Mr. Harker, may I present my friends Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes?
How do you do?
Sherlock Holmes? Dearie me, is it as bad as all that? You see, Horace, I told you. Next thing you know, he'll be suspecting you of the murder.
Now, Mother.
I assure you, Mr. Harker, I am only here unofficially. Inspector Lestrade has charge of this case.
Well, that's a relief anyway. Oh, well, I mean... Well, you see, Mr. Lestrade knows Horace, and that's something. I mean, well, you understand. That is...
Of course. As a matter of fact, the thing that interests me most of all isn't the murder.
No?
No, it's the broken bust of Napoleon.
Yes, that's it. It all started with that bust. I never did like the man, Napoleon, I mean, and why Horace wanted a bust of him sitting in the living room, I'll never...
We know, Mother. But perhaps I'd better tell the gentleman just what did happen.
Yes, I suppose that would be a good idea.
Well, as Minnie was saying, it all seems to center around that bust of Napoleon that I bought for this very room about 4 months ago.
Where did you purchase it, Mr. Harker?
From Morse Hudson's shop, Mr. Holmes, in Kennington Road. Uh-huh. Well, as you may know, gentlemen, a great deal of a journalist's work is done at night. I often write until the early morning.
Just ruining his
Now,
health.
Mother. Well, tonight I was sitting in my den, which is at the top of the house at the back. I'd almost finished my work, and Minnie was trying to get me to come to bed. Just a few minutes, Mother. I'm almost through.
But here it is after 12 again. What must the neighbours think, seeing your light burning all hours of the night?
What does it matter what they think?
Besides, you'll ruin your eyes.
Now, Mother.
What is it you've got to sit up for this time?
It's a new column we're running, Mother. Advice to the Lovelorn by Gwendolyn Desmond.
Advice to the Lovelorn? Well, that's indecent. A man writing things like that.
I know, Mother, but better a married man than a single man. Oh. If I don't do it, they probably'd get that young whippersnapper Jones, and Lord only knows the things he'd think up with... What's that?
Burglars. I know it's burglars.
Nonsense, Mother. It's probably just the cat. She's knocked something off the mantelpiece.
No, I'm sure it's burglars.
Very well. I'll go down and see.
Horace Harker, you're not going down there.
Well, how else can I find out if it's the cat or burglars that made that noise?
But they'll kill you.
Nonsense. Give me the poker.
Oh, dear, I wish you wouldn't.
Now, you stay here. I'll be right back.
Stay here? By myself? No, sir, I'm coming too.
All right, Mother, but let go my coattails.
I can't. My knees are all of a tremble. Don't go so fast, Horace.
Mother, don't talk so loud. If it is burglars, you'll scare them off.
That's just what I'm trying to do.
Well, here we are. You see? It's just something that fell off the mantelpiece.
Oh, the hand-painted bonbon dish that Aunt Susie gave us for a wedding present. Smashed to bits.
There. You see?
Look. Horace, look.
What's the matter?
The window's open. And that bust of Napoleon, it's gone.
Where?
Horace, did you hear that?
Sounded like someone falling against the front door.
Oh, it's horrible. Oh, Horace, don't go.
Yeah, I've got to find out. Just a minute till I get the door open. Hello, there's something heavy pressing against it.
Oh, heaven protect us.
That's it.
It's a man lying on the doorstep.
And his throat is slit from ear to ear.
Will it wear? Will it be comfortable? Is it correctly styled? Clippercraft Clothes answer these questions emphatically by delivering even today in this era of high prices the most amazing values you've ever seen. You'll wonder how it's done. Well, it's the great Clippercraft plan, which concentrates the buying power of 1,036 stores from coast to coast and delivers to you these beautifully styled, beautifully tailored clothes, including long-wearing worsteds, at a friendly local store you can trust. Fine Clippercraft suits that look much more costly are only $40 and $45. Top coats and fine coverts and worsted gabardine are only $40 and $45, and sport jackets are only $26.50. Yes, selling expensive clothes at inexpensive low prices at the nation's finest independent stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
These leading stores in the metropolitan area are proud to add their names to Clippercraft in your suit, top coat, and overcoat. In Manhattan, Saks 34th, Broadway at 34th. John Wanamaker Men's Stores, Broadway at 8th and 67 Liberty Street. In Brooklyn, Abraham and Strauss. In Newark, New Jersey, Boulevard Men's Shop, Kresge Newark. And in Jamaica, the B&B Clothes Shop, 16408 Jamaica Avenue.
And now, suppose we return to the house of Horace Harker, where Holmes is helping Inspector Lestrade to solve a bloodthirsty murder.
Did you know the murdered man, Mr. Harker?
No, Mr. Holmes, I did not. They've taken the body to the mortuary.
What did he look like?
Tall, dark, and powerfully built. Poorly dressed, but he didn't have the hands of a laborer. A horn-handled knife was lying in a pool of blood beside him. But whether it was his or whether it was the knife that did the deed, I don't know.
Anything in his pockets?
No card or letters of identification, if that's what you mean. Just an apple, some string, a shilling, a map of London, and a photograph. Here it is.
Excellent. A rather simian countenance, Watson?
Ugly-looking brute. And vicious, too, I should say.
Yes, but look here, Holmes. What's become of the bust?
Ah, the bust. Yes, of course, the bust. He wouldn't dare carry it very far. Someone might see him and identify him. Are there any empty houses around here, Mr. Harker?
There's one right next door.
No, that wouldn't do. Too dark. He had to have light. Dr. Barnicot's statue was found smashed in the passageway where the light from his front door illuminated it.
There's just one other vacant house in this block, Mr. Holmes. Fifth to the right, under the street light.
Excellent. That must be the one. Come, Watson, let's see what we can find.
Wait a minute, I'm coming too.
Very well.
Oh, but you must come back, Mr. Holmes, all of you. You must be famished. Dear me, where's my sense of hospitality? I'll go and put the kettle on right away.
Splendid. We'll be back before it's had a chance to come to a boil. Fifth to the right under the streetlight. That was what Harker said, wasn't it?
Yes, but I must say, Holmes, I don't see what you can expect to find. It seems to me
Just as I thought. There's the fifth bust, lying shattered in shards upon the grass.
Destructive brute.
I'd give a great deal to know if he found what he was looking for.
What do you mean?
I can't explain now, but suppose we all meet at Baker Street tomorrow night directly after dinner, and I think I can promise you an exciting evening.
You're on the murderer's trail?
Quite. In the meantime, you, Lestrade, see if you can discover the dead man's identity, while I inquire into the manufacturing of those busts and see if I can trail the ruffian in the photographs.
That's right. Pick the most exciting chore for yourself.
And the most dangerous. Don't forget that, Lestrade.
Watson, don't quibble. We have a long way to go, and yet we've discovered some rather significant facts tonight.
I must say I don't see anything particularly significant.
In the first place, breaking the bust was not the sole object of tonight's criminal.
Well, how do you know?
If it had been, he'd have broken it inside the house or immediately outside. In the second place, the possession of this trifling bust was worth more in his eyes than a human life. Yes, I think I'm beginning to understand what he was after. Well, Lestrade, how about another cup of coffee?
No, thanks. 2 cups is enough for any man. I'm not the coffee addict you are.
What a pity. It might stimulate the brain.
Now, look here, Holmes. You may think you see your way clear in this matter, but I have my own ideas.
Yes?
Yes. The dead man was Pietro Venucci. They knew him down at the yard, all right. He was one of the greatest cutthroats in London, a member of an Italian Black Hand Society, too.
How reprehensible.
A society that punishes its offending members by death. Well, this chap in the photograph was probably a member, too. The whole thing's just one of those Italian feuds.
How simple. But where do the busts come in? And was it just a coincidence that the murdered man was working in the shop of Morse Hudson?
I don't see why the busts have to be brought into the question of the murder.
Oh, but they do, Lestrade. Those busts contain the motive for the murder.
Oh, that sounds like plain lunacy, if you ask me.
No, it's really quite simple. I found this morning at Mr. Morse Hudson's shop that the murdered man had been an employee of his for the last 6 months, previous to which time he'd worked for the firm of Gelder and Company, the firm which molded those busts of Napoleon which someone had been so avidly smashing.
Yes, but Gelder and Company are an old firm. They must have made thousands of busts of Napoleon.
Quite, but it's only the 6 of this particular batch with which we're concerned.
I must say I still don't see.
Naturally. Well, one afternoon over a year ago, the very afternoon those 6 busts had come from the mold, and while they were still wet, in fact, Beppo, another employee, was chased into the workshop by the police. It seems he'd tried to knife Pietro in a street brawl.
Beppo? But who was Beppo?
Oh, didn't I tell you?
No.
Dear me, how absent-minded of me. Beppo was the man in the photograph. The man he tried to knife that day, as you know, is the same fellow found dead on Harker's doorstep last night.
You see, I told you it was a feud.
The most curious part of the incident is that Beppo was holding something very carefully in his hand when he ran into the workroom. And yet, when the police overtook him, they discovered nothing of any interest on him. Beppo was taken off to prison, of course, and was released 2 weeks ago, the day before the first 2 busts were smashed.
Yes, but Holmes, look here. You said there were 6 busts in that particular batch. So far, only 5 have been smashed. Where's the other one?
The sales book of Mr. Morse Hudson shows that it was sold over a month ago to Mr. Joseph Brown of Laburnum Lodge, Chiswick. And now, suppose we pay that worthy gentleman a visit. If luck's with us, it should be an interesting evening.
Yes, but Holmes, isn't it a bit late to go calling? Perhaps Mr. Brown's gone to bed.
I hope so, Watson. I sincerely hope so.
Say, Holmes, it's going to storm any minute. Can't we come back some other time?
No, Watson. The gentleman we're after is not to be put off by a little unpleasant weather. He must finish his quest as soon as possible. He doesn't dare delay for fear the police will be on his trail. I only hope he hasn't been successful already.
Here we are. This gate says Laburnum Lodge. This is the house.
No lights. Mr. Brown has gone to bed. I knew it.
Good. We won't rouse him. Suppose we confine ourselves to an inspection of his shrubbery.
But look here,
Someone's coming along the road. Quick, get behind this hedge.
But I believe...
Yes, he's opened the gate. He's coming in here.
Possibly Mr. Brown coming home from a lodge meeting.
No, Mr. Brown's probably accustomed to using the front door.
You're right. He's trying to get in a window.
By Jove, it's a burglar.
And a very expert one, too. He broke the lock like a veteran.
He's going in. Hadn't we better follow him?
No. We'll get him on his way out after he's found what he's after.
That storm's going to break any minute now.
Here he comes. He's got something white under his arm.
Get ready.
Get him!
Chi siete? Che cosa volete da me?
No,
Lasciatemi stare! Look out for his knife!
No, you don't. Drop it. Drop it, I say. That's better. All right, put the handcuffs on him, Lestrade.
Yes, sir. He's a tough one, he is.
Gentlemen, allow me to present Beppo, one of Italy's master criminals. So you did want the 6th Napoleon, eh? Don't want to talk? Very well.
So this is the man who committed last night's murder, eh?
Yes, this is the murderer and the bust smasher.
Well, now that you've got the 6th Napoleon, what are you going to do with it?
Lend me your topcoat and I'll show you.
Huh? Oh, very well.
Oh, but first come over to the street light.
Come along, you. You know what's good for you.
Che cosa volete?
Come along.
Non ho fatto nulla. Non so niente.
Now, first, I wrap the bust in Watson's coat so we won't lose any of the splinters. Then I follow Beppo's procedure and smash it against the lamppost. So...
Look here, that's my best top coat. You'll ruin it.
Now, we spread the coat on the ground and look among the fragments.
Lei spaventi. No, maledizione, no, la perla è mia. La perla nera è mia, è mia, è mia.
Our friend Beppo seems to be rather excited.
Davila.
Keep him at a distance, Lestrade. I don't want him to do any snatching.
Stand back now, you... Come on.
Now, let me see. No. No. Yes, by Jove, here it is.
Why, it's a tremendous black pearl.
Yes, Watson. The famous black pearl of the Borgias, stolen from a museum in Florence 2 years ago. Devilishly beautiful, isn't it?
Well, that was an exciting discovery, Dr. Watson, but look, there are 1 or 2 points I don't understand. How did Pietro figure in the story? Why did they quarrel? How did the pearl get into the bust of Napoleon?
That pearl had been stolen by Beppo and Pietro. They quarreled, and Beppo tried to kill the other chap. He had the pearl in his hand when the police broke up their fight. He ran into the workroom and buried the pearl in one of the soft busts of Napoleon standing on the workroom table. From that time, the feud was on. Lestrade was right there. Each one was determined to get the pearl. Pietro didn't know where the pearl was hidden, and Beppo was in jail, so the odds were fairly even until Beppo got out. Pietro knew his only chance was to shadow Beppo, which he did, and met his death.
And that disposed of both of them very neatly. And now, Dr. Watson, do you think you'd like to give us an idea about next week's story?
I think I could be persuaded, Mr. Harris. I think I could be persuaded. Let me see. Next week, I think I'll take you down to the port of London, where Holmes and I discovered a fantastic East Indian temple among the wharves and warehouses. There, in front of a hideous idol, we ran into our old friend, Professor Moriarty. I call it the Adventure of the Serpent God. My hair, what's still left of it, stands on end when I remember it.
The makers of Clippercraft clothes and 1,036 leading stores from coast to coast have brought you another in the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Our stories are based upon the character of Sherlock Holmes, created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Sherlock Holmes is played by John Stanley, Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley, and the dramatizations are by Edith Miser. Sherlock Holmes is produced and directed by Basil Lochran, with special music by Albert Berman. If you don't know your Clippercraft dealer, write Clippercraft, 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes in the Adventure of the Serpent God. This is Cy Harris speaking for Clippercraft Clothes. This is the world's largest network serving more than 450 radio stations and mutual broadcasting systems.
77 years ago, March 7th, 1948, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We'll have more drama on our Saturday podcast with the story of Dr. Kildare, starring Lou Ayres and Lionel Barrymore, Jack Webb in an episode of Dragnet the Big Laugh, Edward Polly in Big Town from 1949, and The Crooked Eye, an episode of Mr. District Attorney starring David Bryan from 1953, and we'll wrap it all up with a visit to Claudia and Company. That's coming up on tomorrow's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Sunday, comedy, Phil Harris and Alice Faye, Jack Benny, George and Gracie, Amos and Andy, and we'll have another Superman adventure as we try to wrap up the mystery for Superman. And then Monday, more comedies with Lucille Ball, Richard Denning, and My Favorite Husband, The Adventures of Archie Andrews, Groucho Marx, and You Bet Your Life, and Abbott and Costello. And then, let's see, That was Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Tuesday, we'll have another episode of The Big Show starring Tallulah Bankhead with a whole bunch of stars, including Bob Burns and Jimmy Durante, along with an episode of the Screen Guild Theater and Irish Eyes Are Smiling. That's all coming up over the next few days here on Classic Radio Theater. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can hear each and every episode at classicradio.stream or anywhere podcasts are served. Coming up next here on Classic Radio Theater, this is your FBI.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chief hope of our enemies is to divide the United States along racial and religious lines and thereby conquer us. Let's not spread prejudice. A divided America is a weak America. Through our behavior, we encourage the respect of our children and make them better neighbors to all races and religions. Remind them that being good neighbors has helped make our country great and kept her free. Thank you.
We were told this was J. Edgar Hoover's favorite radio program. He thought it was great. This is your FBI. It was an ABC program. This episode from 73 years ago, March 7th, 1952, entitled The Skyway Man.
This is your FBI. This is your FBI, the official broadcast from the files of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Tonight, the subject of our FBI file, grand larceny. Its title, The Skyway Man.
Crimes are committed for many reasons. Revenge, fear, ignorance, hate. But the greatest number are caused by greed. The dictionary defines greed as acquisitive desire beyond reason. But that definition does not explain why certain people are possessed by that unreasonable appetite. For the explanation, we must go to the field of psychiatry, which tells us that in the case of many adults, greed is a result of insecurity stemming from their youth. Insecurity which often is a result of a lack of affection by parents toward a child. Sometimes it is a result of overprotection of a child by parents. The insecurity coming when the child goes out into the world and finds himself unable to cope with a society which does not give him similar overprotection. This message is brought to you so that parents in the homes into which this program is coming may learn what they may do today to well determine whether or not a crime will be committed 10 years from now. Tonight's FBI file opens on the midway of a county fair. It is early afternoon as a well-dressed man approaches one of the midway games of chess.
Come on, anybody, you there, mister. Come on up to the counter. No, I don't want to play cards with you. Never gambled in my life, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you an amazing deck of cards. Come up a little closer, mister. That's it, right up to the counter. Now, let's say you've been losing to some rascal. You want to get even. That's human. That's natural. You bet this rascal $1, you can pick out the 4 aces without looking. You let him examine the cards. You let him shuffle them. Now, go ahead, mister. You shuffle them. Now, you leave the deck right where it is. That's it. You press down here, turn the deck this way, and the 4 aces come sliding out. Now, I could charge you $50 for this deck. I could charge you any price. But I don't want to be a millionaire. That's why I'm selling them cheap. $2. That's all it costs. And Hey, mister, come back. Now, where did you come from?
Well, son, if you hadn't been driving that customer away, you'd have seen me.
I thought that'd be my first sale today.
Do you have a report for me?
Yeah. We're not doing a job here.
No? Why not? Just tell me, where do they keep the money?
The manager's got a safe in his office.
If it's in his safe, the money's as good as trickling through our fingers.
No, it ain't.
I presume there's a reason for your pessimism.
Remember how you came into the fairgrounds?
Certainly I do. Of course.
That's the only gate, and the road from town is the only road. There's no getaway.
Ah, there must be.
Do you feel like gambling?
Well, if the proposition is attractive.
And the one you can't figure one out.
Yeah, well, I'll just risk $5.
You got 50 to your 5.
Splendid, splendid. Now you go back to amusing the populace with your mediocre pitch. I'll survey the premises.
That same afternoon, at the FBI field office in a city some miles away, Special Agent Jim Taylor approaches the desk of Agent George Bentley.
Hi, George.
Oh, hello, Jim. This is one fugitive we won't have to worry about for a while. He got 30 years this morning.
We got a couple of new ones on our hands.
Oh, who?
A case the SAC just put us on. Several county fairs and carnivals have been burglarized in the past 6 months.
Yeah, so I saw in the bulletin.
Well, we know definitely the same safecracker worked in 4 different states because he left fingerprints behind each place.
That'd probably mean the loot was transported interstate.
Yeah, I guess so.
Any ident on the burglar?
No, but we do have evidence there are at least 2 men. A watchman up in Oregon saw them run after one of the burglaries.
How come we were alerted?
Well, as the watchman approached the shack where the safe was, he heard the burglars talking. One of them said something about coming here.
Where was the last job?
Oregon. Our office there is working on it. I thought we'd cover the transportation terminals here. If we find an ex-safecracker on any passenger list, it just might be a lead.
Hi, Betty.
Hi, Chuck. You done your jump?
Just now.
Pretty soft. 1 jump and through for the day.
Maybe through for good.
You retiring?
Might have to. Come on, walk me over to the office.
What's playing there?
Andy wrote to some carnies down south.
That where you're going?
Yeah, if we get a booking.
What happens if you don't?
We try something new, not eating.
You that broke?
I got about $6.50, and Andy's holding a 10 spot.
Maybe you can borrow some dough on the plane.
Anybody who would lend us money on that wouldn't have sense enough to have money.
Hi, kids.
Hi. How's old aches and pains?
Okay.
Andy, you been to the office?
Yeah.
Any hot offers?
Nothing.
Well, something will turn up.
Fellas, why don't you get a new act?
We got one.
Well, sure. Didn't you see me come down on fire?
I mean a whole new act. Forget about the plane, the parachute. Start from scratch.
Betty, how long you been doing publicity?
10 years.
Then it'd be like me telling you all to forget your typewriter. We've been doing this act since Chuck got out of high school.
But in those days, it was a novelty to see a guy jump from a plane. Today, in a newsreel, 1,000 GIs jump with guns. Don't you see, you're selling a stale joke.
I'll see you both later.
Where are you going?
To the hangar to rest my bones. That's old-fashioned, too.
Guess he didn't like my popping off.
Oh, that was okay.
You sore, too?
Of course not. Go on, I'll buy you a drink.
Greetings, Roy.
Oh, hi, Al. Sit down.
Thanks. Well,
been over the whole layout already?
Yep. And the outlook seems to appear gloomy.
After this, when I say there's no getaway, don't bet me. Here, I ordered this drink for you.
Oh, thanks, son. Thank you. Good luck. Well, with whiskey like this on the market, I don't understand how the population keeps increasing. I took a little look at that safe in the manager's office during my stroll. I can open it with this piece of lemon peel.
Why eat your heart?
Say, how can they get that drunk on this kind of whiskey?
He ain't loaded.
He ain't? You mean he acts like that all the time?
Yeah, he's the guy who jumps from the plane.
The plane? Whose plane?
Oh, an old job him and his partner own.
Oh, what's that young man's name?
Chuck White.
And the lady with him?
Betty Kimball. She's a press agent for the show.
Oh, she appears to be leaving.
Hey, I thought you said dames and business don't mix.
I am not interested in the young lady, but I have a notion about Mr. White. I'll see you in good time.
Where you going?
I'm going to the bar to accidentally make Mr. White's acquaintance.
Tracking down suspects is never an easy job, and this case proved to be no exception. All that afternoon, Agents Taylor and Bentley collected passenger lists of trains, planes, and buses originating in Portland. Then the names were teletyped to Washington. Unfortunately, the work produced no affirmative results. That meant your FBI still faced the same problem. The job of apprehending two criminals without knowing their names, descriptions, or whereabouts.
George, we've got a lead.
What's that, Jim?
$5,000 of the loot stolen from the fair in Oregon and just come from the bank.
New money?
Yeah, and the Portland office got us the serial numbers. Here's a copy for you.
Mm-hmm.
SAC had me send those serial numbers to all transportation terminals.
Oh, fine. Here's a list in return.
What's this one?
Every fair, carnival, and amusement park in our territory.
Hey, Oh, I got it here.
Okay.
Taylor speaking. Yes, sir, that's right. Oh, you know when you took it in? Was that the only one? Oh. Yes, sir, thank you very much for calling. George, I was the airline ticket agency. They took in one of the $20 bills on the list.
When?
Today, Mr. John Smith passed it. The ticket was for Auburn. The name is obviously fictitious.
Hey, there's a county fair at Auburn.
Good. George, will you notify them and clean up the other details around here?
Sure.
I'll catch the next plane.
Andy! Up and at him. Come on.
Kind of pain in the back of my neck.
Wait till you hear the news. I was at the saloon on the Midway, and I ran into somebody named Mr. Williams at the bar.
Yeah?
He'll pay us $300 to take him to Lake City.
In old-fashioned money?
Yeah, get up.
Oh. What show is this Mr. Williams with?
None. He missed his train back to Lake City, and tomorrow's his boy's birthday, so he's got to get home.
Yeah, I like that boy of his.
He already paid me. Look.
Where's Mr. Williams now?
Shopping for a birthday present.
When's he want to leave?
Sometime tonight.
Well, that'll give me time.
For what?
A way of healing my neck. A nice warm poultice of new $10 bills.
All right, you riffle the cards this way, and everyone's the 8 of diamonds. You say that's not a trick? Okay, try this one. Bet that rascal $1 you can cut the deck 10 times and always cut an ace. You say it can't be done? Well, just watch the deck.
I'll be glad to.
Oh, hi.
Son, did it ever occur to you that the lack of customers could be due to a poor product?
These rubes wouldn't pay a deuce for a key to Fort Knox.
I came to bid you a fond farewell.
The fair don't close for an hour yet.
I am acquainted with the schedule, but my plane is waiting. I'll meet you at my apartment.
What about the job?
Son, in this little black bag are not only the tools of my profession, but the former contents of the safe.
What?
An opportunity presented itself a few moments ago that was a little bit too good to pass up.
How'd you swing it solo?
Eavesdropping outside the manager's office. I heard him tell a party on the telephone that he'd be right over to judge the livestock.
Nobody saw you go in, did they?
I beg your pardon.
This is the first time I ever blew a 10-to-1 bet and liked it.
Well, I'll deduct the loss from your portion of the proceeds.
Okay.
Oh, son.
Yeah?
When the gendarmes arrive, don't be surprised if they assume the theft was committed by your devil-may-care compatriot.
Who?
Mr. Chuck White. When I finished work, I left a memento for the police. A little wallet I borrowed from his pocket this afternoon.
And now back to the FBI file, The Skyway Man.
No child enters life a criminal. Yet today, approximately 1 person out of every 20 in the United States has a fingerprint arrest record in the Washington files of your FBI. In tonight's case, you see two of those people, an older criminal and a young man in his 20s. Each is a confirmed lawbreaker. Why? Actually, the sources of crime in America may be sought in three directions. In the abnormal personality traits of the criminal, in the general culture of American society, and in the abnormal physical or social conditions under which the criminal has lived. Of those, perhaps the most important is the last, the physical or social conditions under which the criminal has lived. Each person is a product of certain influences, and it is axiomatic that home life and parents rank at the top of those influences. If you are a parent, what are you doing to help prevent your child from becoming a criminal of the future? Is he learning by watching you to respect law and order? Are you giving him the attention and affection he needs? Your FBI has learned many things in its years of fighting crime, one of them being that even more than charity, crime prevention begins at home. Tonight's FBI file continues later that night at the county fairgrounds. Special Agent Taylor is in the manager's office when Agent Bentley arrives.
Jim, I hear this place was burglarized tonight.
Yeah, just before I got here.
Even after our warning, huh?
The manager thought his safe couldn't be cracked.
Where is he now?
It's down at police headquarters. They sent out an alarm on two suspects named Chuck White and Andy Anderson after they found this wallet near the safe. Belongs to White.
Who's he?
He's a parachute jumper with the show. Anderson is his pilot.
Any idea where they went?
No, but they took off right after the robbery.
The manager know where they're supposed to work next?
Well, this is the end of the circuit, George. From here, everybody splits up for the winter.
Oh.
There's one other piece of evidence against White and Anderson. They came here from the fair near Portland. I guess we better answer it. Hello? Oh, yes, Mr. Mitchell. I did? When? Fine. Yes, of course. No, there isn't. Well, we'll get something. Yeah. Thanks. George, that was the manager. Word just came in at headquarters on that alarm. The plane's been found at Lake City.
How about the two men?
Lake City police are holding them.
Well, I doubt we can get there tonight.
No, probably not, but let's notify the Lake City police. We'd like to interview the men first thing in the morning. Mr. White, you claim you have no idea how your wallet got into the manager's office, huh?
That's right.
When do you last remember having it?
I don't know. Wallets are for keeping money in, so I didn't get to use it a lot.
Seems like y'all ought to know me and Chuck ain't crooks.
Mr. Anderson, White's wallet was found in the safe after the burglary. You both took off from the fair immediately after that safe was cracked. You both had money that was stolen last week at a fair in Oregon, and you both worked at that fair.
But we told you we got that money from Mr. Williams.
Yeah, ask him.
We're trying to. Oh, hi, George. Find anything?
No. We've checked every Williams in the phone book and on the voting records.
Today's his boy's birthday.
And that didn't help. Neither did that description you gave.
You men know anybody who can prove there is such a man?
No, I'm afraid not.
If we saw him and spoke to him, don't that prove he's real?
Well, I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm afraid the evidence against you is pretty strong.
FBI headquarters in Washington takes an important part in all cases. In this one, for example, Agents Taylor and Bentley sent the fingerprints of Chuck White and Andy Anderson to Washington, and also sent the description of the man they knew thus far only as Mr. Williams. Further investigation was also made on which fairs and carnivals Anderson and White had worked during the previous 6 months. Meanwhile, at an apartment in another city, the doorbell rang.
Patience. Coming.
Hi, Al.
Well, Roy. Come in.
Did you have any trouble brushing the two patsies?
No, not a bit. Nice boys. I left them at the Lake City airport. They were arrested an hour later.
And what are you doing?
Hanging picture.
This guy a friend of yours?
A friend? Yes, indeed, son.
Who is he?
A great man, son. A really great man. Son, that was Robert Adams, the father of American safecrackers.
I never heard of him.
Ah, it's too bad, yes. He was rather neglected in the history books. Quite a pity, quite a pity. Why, do you know, the reward on him was more than most men can steal in a lifetime.
Oh, I don't know. We ought to be pretty fat in the loot department. Where you got it?
It's right over there on the table. It's waiting for you, the large envelope.
How much is there?
$8,000.
Oh, brother, I can't wait to start spreading it around New York.
New York?
Yeah, I shipped my trunk up there, and I got a room waiting at a hotel.
Right. There's no point squandering the money that you work so hard to get. Now, listen, you take my advice. I wish somebody'd given it to me when I was your age. Yes, sir. You get married. You get married to some nice girl like that nice little girl up in Oregon.
She's in jail.
No. Well, there are other girls around. The place for you to go is south, my boy. There are plenty of carnivals running down there. You try to find one in Georgia or Florida. I still need them.
For what?
Well, I don't know. I suppose it's just an old man's pride. But before I retire, I would like to crack at least one safe in every state in the Union.
George, we got some reports from Washington. Neither White nor Anderson has a criminal record.
Anything back on that Mr. Williams?
Yes, there is a safecracker with that name who answers the general description. They wire-photoed his picture for us.
Oh, that it?
Yeah, here, take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the FBI men?
Yes, that's right, ma'am.
The policeman at the desk said to see you.
About what?
Chuck White and Andy Anderson. I'm Betty Kimball.
Oh, I'm Agent Bentley, and this is Agent Taylor.
How do you do?
You know anything about the burglary?
Just that they didn't do it.
Are you related to White or Anderson?
No. I was the press agent with the fair down to Auburn.
I see. Well, tell me, do you know a Mr. Williams?
Williams. Williams, isn't that the man that Chuck and Andy brought up here?
No, that's their story.
You can believe them about anything but their act.
We have Williams' picture here. Would you take a look at it, please?
Mm-hmm.
Ever see him?
I think so.
Where?
I'm trying to remember. Sure. That's the guy I saw hanging around Roy Carter's pitch on the Midway.
Oh, they seem to know each other?
Like old pals.
Who is this Roy Carter?
A grifter. He works carnies, fairs, any place he can set up a stand.
Where can we locate him?
In New York, but I don't know where. I ran into him yesterday while he was checking his equipment at the station. He told me he was going to New York for a vacation after he stopped to see a pal.
George, that pal could be Williams.
Yeah. Did he mention any other city?
No.
Well, if Carter bought a ticket to New York with stopover privileges, the railroad station might have a record of it. Let's call and check. George, the railroad says Carter's ticket allowed for a stop at Oakville.
Oakville? Al Williams was arrested there last year.
Oh?
And Washington sent this teletype. Those unidentified prints on the 4 safes are Williams.
Well, then he probably did this last job, too.
Yep. And they also learned that Roy Carter operated concessions at all the fairs and carnivals where the robberies were reported.
Well, that ties them both in. Come on, we're going to Oakville. Never mind those phone books, George.
Why?
I found the cab driver who picked Carter up.
Hey.
And he remembers where he took him.
Oh, where's that?
An apartment house at 73 Allen Street. Let's get over there. Janitor says Williams left town yesterday.
For where?
He doesn't know, but he told me Carter visited Williams a few days ago.
They leave together?
No, but, George, if they're back in action, maybe we can find out where. Let's get to a phone.
All right, folks, you want to fool your friends, you want to get even with some rascal. Now, here's the way. Watch carefully.
Just a minute, Roy. Where have you been?
No place.
I was here at 3 this afternoon, again at 6. The stand was closed both times.
Oh, I met a girl.
Girl? Who is she?
Oh, local girl. Her mother's got a farm near here where Guys and the Lamb hide out.
Oh, sounds like you're getting into a wonderful family.
Hey, show for me. Here come a couple of customers. All right, folks, here's the magic deck. You always get an 8. See, here you are, mister. You shop.
We didn't come here for that, Carter. We came for you.
Huh?
You too, Williams.
I beg your pardon. Do we know each other?
We're special agents of the FBI. These are warrants for your arrest.
Roy Carter and Al Williams were convicted of interstate transportation of stolen property and sentenced to federal prison. Special Agents Taylor and Bentley learned the name of the carnival at which Roy Carter was working by calling the railroad station in New York. The station master's office told them where Carter had requested that his equipment trunk be sent. The arrest of the two fugitives in this case illustrates not only the thoroughness of any investigation by your FBI, but also the labor which goes into freeing innocent suspects. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is proud of the fact that special agents have never set out to prove the innocence or guilt of any particular person, but have always concentrated on finding the evidence in a case and allowing the facts to speak for themselves. For only in that way can justice be served. And justice is the sole interest of your FBI.
The incidents used in tonight's broadcast are adapted from the files of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. However, all names used are fictitious, and any similarity thereof to the names of places or persons, living or dead, is accidental. This Is Your FBI is a Jerry Devine production.
73 years ago, March 7th, 1952, This Is Your FBI on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit our webpage at classicradio.stream. And coming up next, we'll take you far beyond the horizons. X-1 and a gun for Dinosaur.
Ladies and gentlemen, make tomorrow your D-Day. Get an extra bond for defense. Step into any bank or post office and buy yourself a profitable share in America's future. As an investment, bonds are better than ever. They can help you save safely, conveniently, and profitably. So whether you already buy on the payroll savings plan where you work or the bond-a-month plan where you bank, get an extra bond for defense tomorrow.
Now we continue on Classic Radio Theater with an episode of X-1. This goes back 69 years to March 7th, 1956. The story, A Gun for Dinosaur.
Countdown for blast off. X-5, 4, 3, 2, X-1, fire. From the far horizons of the unknown come transcribed tales of new dimensions in time and space. These are stories of the future, adventures in which you'll live in 1,000,000, could be years, on 1,000 maybe worlds. The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Galaxy Science Fiction Magazine, presents X-1. Tonight's story, A Gun for Dinosaur, by L. Sprague de Camp.
Just whiskey, please. No soda.
Ice, Mr. Rivers?
Good heavens, no. I have been in America for some time, but not that long.
Well, to a fine dinosaur head.
Well, now, just a moment, Mr. Seligman. I won't take you hunting late Mesozoic dinosaur.
Why not?
How much do you weigh? About 9 stone?
130 pounds.
Yeah, I thought so. It's not heavy enough.
But your advertisement. You said safaris arranged to any time period.
Well, I'll take you to any period in the Cenozoic. I'll get you a shot at any entelodont or even mammoth or mastodon. They have fine heads. But I'll jolly well not take you to the Jurassic or the Cretaceous. You're just too small.
But what's my weight got to do with it?
Look here, old boy. What did you think you were going to shoot those dinosaurs with?
Well,
Well, look over here in this case. That's my own gun, a Continental 600. That shoots a pair of Nitro Express cartridges the size of bananas. It's designed for knocking down elephant, not just wounding them, but knocking them base over apex.
Well, now, I've handled guns.
Oh. Look, I've been guiding hunting parties for over 20 years. But I've never known a man your size who could handle a 6-0. It knocks him over.
Well, people have killed elephant with lighter guns, even a .375.
Ah, yes, but consider an elephant weighs, well, let's say from 4 to 6 tons. You're planning to shoot reptiles weighing 2 to 3 times as much as an elephant. Now, I tell you, Mr. Seligman, I won't take anybody hunting Dinosaur who can't handle a 6-0. Look, let's pour another drink and I'll tell you why. You see, I went into the partnership with the Raja about 5 years ago. I call him that because he's the hereditary monarch of Jaipur. It means nothing, of course. We both wanted to do a bit of hunting again. And Africa's all played out. It's too civilized now. So when we heard of Professor Prohaska's time machine at Washington University, we caught the next plane to St. Louis. The foundation administering the machine had worked out an arrangement splitting the time between scientific parties and hunters who wanted to try their luck at prehistoric game. Hunters paid through the nose, of course, to support the project. Well, it was about our 5th safari that Courtney James showed up. He's what you chaps call a playboy, a big bloke, handsome in a way, florid, beginning to turn to fat. He was on his 4th wife. And when he showed up at the office with a blonde, I assumed that this was the 4th Mrs. James. But he left her in the outer office and corrected my assumption.
Bunny? Oh, no, she's not my wife. My wife is in Mexico, I think, getting a divorce. But Bunny here would like to go along.
I'm sorry. We don't take ladies. Not to the late Mesozoic.
If she wants to go, she'll go. She skis and flies my airplane, so why shouldn't she?
There are enough risks at 85 million BC without adding to them. I'm sorry, but it's against the firm's policy.
Now, look here. I'm paying you a lot of money. I'm entitled...
You can't hire me to do anything against my best judgment. Now, if that's how you feel, get another guide.
All right. But let me tell you.
Oh, it ended with my telling him to get out of the office or I'd throw him out. And I was thinking sadly of all that lovely money that James would have paid me. When in came another sahib, an August Holtzinger, a slim, bald chap with glasses.
Mr. Rivers, I don't want you to think I'm here under false pretenses. I'm really not much of an outdoorsman, and I'll probably be scared to death when I see a real dinosaur.
Oh, well, most of us are frightened at first, but it doesn't do to speak of it.
Well, you see, I've always run a grocery store till my uncle died, and, well, I've got a great deal of money now.
Uh-huh.
And I'm building a new house. I'm engaged, getting married, and, well, I'm determined to hang a dinosaur head over my fireplace or die in the attempt. A ceratopsian, I think. That's the one with the big horned head and the frill over the neck, isn't it?
Well, you want to think twice about that, If you put a 7-foot triceratops head into a small living room, there's apt to be no room left for anything else.
I know it's ridiculous, but I'm determined to do something big for once. Since there's no more real big game hunting, I'm going to shoot a dinosaur and hang his head over my mantel. I'll never be happy otherwise.
The Raja and I decided to make it to the Middle Cretaceous. That's about 85 million years ago. It's the best period for Dinosaur in Missouri. So we drove Holtzinger into the country to let him try the 6-0.
It's rather heavy.
Look, you look out. There's quite a kick.
Couldn't you fire it prone?
Oh, not a gun that big. There's not enough give. You'd break your shoulder. All right. Take the safety off.
Like this?
Yeah. Take my hand. I'll help you up.
Thank you. I think I better try something smaller.
Well, he took a fancy to my Manchester 70, chambered for a .375 Magnum cartridge. That's a little light for elephant, and very definitely light for dinosaur, but we were in a hurry. And then, of course, just before we were ready to trek, James showed up and apologized for insulting me. He'd had a run-in with the girl, and he wanted to go along. And so we were off on safari. You all ready, gentlemen?
Why, yes, I suppose so.
Now, Mr. Holtzinger, you've met my partner, the Raja of Jaipur.
How do you do, sir?
How do you do?
Well, shall we get cracking? After you, Mr. Holtzinger. Mr. James.
Thank you.
Let's get going. All set.
We'll slam the hatch and off we go.
What happens?
Nothing till the force field is built up. There she goes.
What happened to the lights?
Well, there's no current while we're in transition.
I don't feel well.
There's usually a touch of vertigo. I shouldn't worry about it.
Look, what do you shoot for? I mean, with Dinosaur. What is the best shot?
Well, you don't try for his brain, you know. They don't have any. Well, to be exact, they have a little bump about the size of a tennis ball on the top of their spines. And you're not likely to hit it when it's embedded in a 6-foot skull.
Try for the heart. They have big hearts, over 100 pounds. An exploding shell in the heart will slow them down, at least.
Oh, I see.
Why do we have to go so far for a game? Why couldn't we just go back 50 years and shoot lions in Africa?
Well, the machine won't work more recently than 100,000 years ago.
Why?
Well, look, I'm no four-dimensional expert on the subject, but it has something to do with what they call time paradox. You know, if people could go back to recent times, they might do something to affect history or kill their own grandfather, you know. And there's also some kind of taboo about sending people back to the same time again. Paradoxes. Mustn't have them.
What would happen?
I'm not sure, but the university isn't taking chances. They've got about a billion years to cover. They won't run out of eras. Hello? Here we go. Oh, cheers, eh? Well, that's done it. April 24th, 85 million years BC. Now then, careful. Keep the safety on your gun. And don't shoot unless I give the word.
Why? Why should we have to wait for you?
Because I'm responsible for everything you do. Especially if something goes wrong. I say, Roger, open the door, will you? In this period, the time chamber materializes on top of a rocky rise. At the west, you see the arm of the Kansas Sea that reaches across Missouri, and the big swamp where the sauropods live. To the east, the land slopes up to a plateau. It's good for ceratopsians. The finest thing about the Cretaceous is the climate. It's balmy like the South Sea Islands, and not so muggy as the Jurassic. Oh, we sent the time chamber back off and looked about. It was spring, with the dwarf magnolias in bloom all over. Down towards the Kansas Sea, cycads and willows grew, while the uplands were covered with screw pins and ginkgo. Yeah, well, I'm no ruddy poet, but I can appreciate a beautiful scene. Well, I was looking through the haze and sniffing the air.
I got him!
What the devil?
You see it? There it goes!
Confound it, you idiot! I told you not to shoot without word from me. And what happened?
An unearth of mine wandered out of the copse. Mr. James gave him both barrels. Missed.
Now, look here, James. One of the biggest dangers on a safari is trigger-happy sides who get panicky. You're not to shoot unless you're told. You understand?
Who do you think you are to tell me when to shoot my own game?
Now, look here. Firstly, if you shoot up all your ammunition before the trip is over, your gun won't be available in case of a pinch. And secondly, if you empty both barrels, what would happen if a big theropod should charge before you could reload? And finally, it's not sporting to shoot everything in sight. Is that clear?
All right.
Well, now then. First task is fresh meat. As I told you, Holsinger wanted a ceratopsian head. James insisted on a tyrannosaur. Then everybody would think that he'd shot the most dangerous game. Well, the fact is that tyrannosaur's overrated. But everybody's read about the tyrant lizard and... Well, he does have the biggest head of the theropods. Oh, and he'll snap you up if he gets the chance, no fear. Oh, we started off searching for meat. The Raja and I put the sahibs in front. Yeah, we tell them it's so that they'll get the first shot, which is true, but another reason is that they're always tripping and falling with their guns cocked, and if the guy were in front, he'd get shot.
Boneheads.
Where?
See? Crouching over there. Feeding on those cycads. It's about the size of a man.
They look intelligent.
Oh, not likely. That bulge on the head is solid bone. Now then, hold on there, James. You've had your shot for the day. Hold your fire until Holsinger shoots.
Yeah, sure.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Holsinger.
It doesn't matter which one.
No, here. Try that one by the rock. There's a good clear shot. Well, take your safety off.
Oh.
Go ahead now.
Well? Shh. Nuts. I've had enough of this.
James, don't.
I got him clean right through the heart. First shot. How's that?
I thought you were going to give Holsinger the first crack. It's his turn.
Well, I waited. Took so long I thought he'd gut and buck fever.
Very well. But if this sort of thing happens once more, we leave you at camp the next time we go out. The next couple of days, we trekked around the neighborhood and then headed over to the sauropod swamp, over to the west. We were staked out along the edge of the lake, watching a big beggar out in the swamp waving his head about, and they're the big ones. They look something like the brontosaur.
Can't we shoot him?
I wouldn't.
Why not?
Well, there's no point to it, and it's not sporting. Like, if you kill one in the water, he sinks and can't be recovered, and if you kill one on land, well, the only trophy is that little head on the top of that long neck. You can't bring that whole beast back because he weighs 30 tons or more.
That museum in New York got one.
Oh, yes. Well, they sent a party of 48 to the early Cretaceous with a 50 caliber machine gun. They spent 2 solid months hacking and sawing the carcass apart and hauling it to the time machine. I know the chap on the project, and he still has nightmares in which he smells decomposed dinosaur. And they also had to kill a dozen big sauropods who came in for the party. And then they had them lying around, too. They lost 3 men.
Reggie, Duckbill.
Where are they?
Up there at the shoreline. Now, keep your voices down. You see? With a crest on the back of their heads.
Mr. Rivers, I've been thinking over what you said about those heads. If I could get one of those duckbills, I'd be satisfied. It'd look big enough over my mantle, wouldn't it?
I'm sure of it, old boy. Well, let's be off. Roger, you wait here with Mr. James. Shouldn't take us long. Holt and I crept along the shoreline, narrowing the range to the duckbills.
I think I can make the shot from here. I'll be ready in a minute. My shoe is loose. He's getting away. I won't get a shot.
I'm afraid Mr. James has fired both barrels again.
James, that's the second time you spoiled my shots.
Don't be a fool. I couldn't let them wander into camp, stamping everything flat.
There was no danger to that. You can see that the water is deep offshore. It's just that our trigger-happy Mr. James can't see any animal without shooting.
And if it did get close, all you have to do is to throw a stick of firewood at it. They're perfectly harmless.
But how was I to know?
I believe I mentioned it.
Well, what are we on this miserable trip for, except to shoot things?
There are certain rules, you know.
You call yourselves hunters. I'm the only one who was hitting anything.
Now, just a moment, old man. You're behaving like a confounded skite with more money than brains. I should never have brought you along.
Well, that's how you feel. Give me some food and I'll go back to the base for myself.
Now, don't be a bigger ass than you can help. That's quite impossible.
All right, I'll go alone. I wouldn't want to pollute your air with my presence.
Yeah, that's an attractive thought, Reggie, but we can't let him go. He'll get lost or starve. All right, I'll go after him.
We stumbled along for several more days. James on his good behavior for a change. And on the 1st of May, we broke camp and headed north to the hills. That was hot and sticky. We were soon panting and sweating like horses when I picked up the smell of carrion and heard the thrumming of the flies. We found a huge ceratopsian lying dead in a little hollow on the edge of the copse. He must have weighed 6 or 8 tons alive.
Why couldn't I have gotten him before he died? That would have made a darn fine head.
On your toes, chaps. The sauropod that's been at this carcass is probably nearby.
How do you know?
We see how the hide's been ripped off and the bones are scattered. Sauropods will hang around a carcass like this for weeks, gorging and then sleeping their meals off for days at a time.
What do we do?
Well, that's what we came after. Roger, you take Mr. James through that way, and we'll parallel you 40 feet distant. Now keep your eyes open. It'll be hard to see in these woods unless you're right on top of him. We pushed through the edge of the copse, looking for the huge flesh-eater who'd been at the carcass. I could hear James and the Rajah pushing ahead on my right. We were separated by a gully when I heard a noise ahead on our left.
What is it?
I don't know. Take the safety off your gun.
Oh, there it is. It's one of those boneheads.
Oh, well, they're not dangerous at any rate. But be careful. That sauropod might still be around.
I've got him! Got him clean!
Well, he's done it again. He shot the bonehead.
I've got him!
Look out! Look out! Dinosaur!
Tyrannosaur heaved his head out of a shrubbery just in front of us. Look, the scientists can insist that Rex is bigger than Trionches, but I'll swear that this Tyrannosaur was bigger than any Rex ever hatched. It must have stood 20 feet high and been 50 feet long. I could see its big, bright eye and 6-inch teeth. He'd been sleeping off his last meal, and James fired off both barrels over his head at the bonehead and woke the Tyrannosaur up. Get back! Get back, you fool! Gun's empty and Roger can't get a shot. Found it, there goes the beast in behind those ferns. Holtzinger! Holtzinger! Come back! Your gun's too light for that beggar! James came bolting back in a panic and blundered into the Raja, sending both of them sprawling under the ferns. The Tyrannosaur came after them to snap them up. Holtzinger began to blaze away. He got off 3 shots through the beast's body with that little light gun. The Tyrannosaur whirled around to see what was stinging it. The jaws came open, and the head swung around and down again. Holtzinger got off 1 more shot and tried to leap to one side. The Tyrannosaur continued its lunge and caught him in its jaws as he fell. Reggie, stand clear!
Hart's the only chance.
It's no use, there he goes.
Try a long shot.
I missed him clean. Poor Holtzinger.
Well, that's the end. He stopped screaming. Did you notice?
Oh, yes. Well, I expect we'd best track the beast. He might be dying. We should try to recover Holtzinger's remains.
Yes, there's nothing else to do.
No, nothing. A bad show all round. An hour later, we gave up and went back to the glade looking very dismal.
Well, where have you two been?
We were occupied. The late Mr. Holtzinger. Remember?
You shouldn't have gone off and left me. None of those things might have come along. Isn't it bad enough to lose one hunter through your stupidity?
What?
Sure, you put us in front of you, so if anybody gets eaten, it's one of us. That's...
You stinking little swine. If you hadn't been a first-class idiot and blown those 2 barrels again, this never would have happened. Holtzinger died trying to save your worthless life. And I wish he'd failed.
Oh, I ought to...
Now then, my leather buck, I'm glad you did that. It gives me a chance I've been waiting for. Now get up. And I'll be glad to finish off.
You won't finish anybody off. All right, put your hands up. Both of you.
Put that gun away. Don't be an idiot.
I won't let anybody do that to me.
You can't get away with murder.
Why not? Won't be much left of you after you're hit with a 600 explosive shell. Nobody could prove anything. They can't hold you for a murder 85 million years old. The statute of limitations, you know.
Nice work, Roger, old chap.
Cretaceous rock. Doesn't quite have the balance of a cricket ball, but it's a bit harder, what?
Well, suppose we tie this chap up and take him back to camp. When the time transition chamber finally arrived, we fell over one another getting into it. We dumped James in a corner and threw the switches.
You two should have killed me back there.
Why? You don't have a particularly good head.
Wouldn't look at all well over a mantle.
You can laugh, but I'll get you someday.
Well, close quarters, isn't it?
Someday I'll find a way. I'll find a way and I'll get off scot-free, too.
My dear chap, if there was some way to do it, I'd have you charged with Holtzinger's murder. Look, you'd best let well enough alone.
No, I'll kill you. Both of you. Somehow.
Cigarette, Roger?
Thanks.
When we came out in the present, we handed him his empty gun, and off he went. We paid everybody off, found that we were broke. But quite luckily, a steel manufacturer turned up who wanted a mastodon head for his den. While we were standing in the laboratory at the university waiting for the time chamber, the technician, he's a A bookish chap, a theoretical temporal physicist, was watching his dials and scopes.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Rivers, you just missed him.
Missed who?
That last client of yours, Mr. James.
Well, that's good luck. And what was he doing here?
Oh, he told me quite a tale. Said he'd lost his wallet back there. Said it contained some very valuable papers. It must have been valuable. He paid the university fee of $5,000 for the use of the chamber. He's on his way back there now.
Back where?
Well, he told me to send him back a few minutes before you arrived the last time. Then he could see himself drop the wallet.
He's going to stand there and watch himself come out? Yeah, but, doesn't that create what you chaps call a paradox? What happens when a man tries to occupy the same time twice?
No, we don't know. It's never been tried before. Well, we tried to warn him, but he insisted.
Yes, I know. He's a headstrong chap. Still, you wouldn't think he'd chance it just for the sake of a wallet. Was he armed?
Yes. He had a .375 Express.
.375? Well, that's odd. He knows it's too light for Dinosaur.
Yes, but not too light for a man. I say, Roger, you don't think Mr. James is lurking behind a bush back there until we show up again? Planning to pot us as we step out?
That's impossible. We already did step out of the chamber and nothing happened.
Yeah, but that was before Mr. James was waiting with an express rifle cocked. Hey, Doctor?
But you mean he's planning to murder the two of you?
Oh, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I don't suppose there's anything you could do to stop the process now.
No, it's too late. The chamber's in transition now. Look, hadn't you better get out of here before he kills you?
Well, there's no point in running. If Mr. James's theory is right, we've both been dead for 85 million years. We might as well wait and see what happens.
Transition point coming up.
Well, it's been quite a world up to this point. Hey, Roger?
Yes, quite.
Here it goes.
Reggie, are you all right?
Well, I seem to be. What happened?
The time chamber. It's back. We'd better get it open.
Good Lord, look at that.
Ghastly, isn't it? Where did it come from?
I'm not sure. But I rather think it came from the Middle Cretaceous era. It wasn't here a moment ago.
Ghastly mess. Looks as if every bone was pulverized and every blood vessel burst.
I dare say. But that's his gun, all right. It's James, there's no doubt of it. So, that's the story, Mr. Seligman. Of course, I don't understand the mathematics, but the idea's rather easy to grasp. Nobody had shot us when we first emerged on the 24th of April, 85 million BC. And so, of course, that couldn't be changed. The instant James started to do anything that would make a paradox, the space-time forces snapped him forward and ripped him to bits. Well, they know a good deal about that now, and there's a safety margin of 500 years between each trip. You can't have paradoxes, you know. It just isn't done. And you see, I'm a lot more careful now. I shouldn't have taken James when I knew what a spoiled, unstable sort he was. Or Holtzinger either. When I saw that he was too small to shoot a dinosaur gun. With a heavier gun, he'd probably have knocked the Tyrannosaur down and saved his own life. So, Mr. Seligman, that's why I won't take you to that period to hunt. I'm sorry, but you're just too light. You're not big enough to handle a gun for Dinosaur.
You have just heard X-1, presented by the National Broadcasting Company in cooperation with Galaxy Science Fiction Magazine, which this month features the story of a man who develops a spaceship that travels so fast that its pilots vanish mysteriously into thin air. Read the Vaughn Shelton story, Point of Departure, in Galaxy Magazine, on your newsstand now. Tonight, by transcription, X-1 has brought you A Gun for Dinosaur, A story from the pages of Galaxy, written by L. Sprague de Camp, patent consultant and one of our leading authors of science fiction. It was adapted for radio by Ernest Kenoy. Featured in the cast were Alastair Duncan, Wendell Holmes, John Gibson, Donald Buca, Warren Parker, and Alan Hewitt. Your announcer, Fred Collins. X-1 was directed by Daniel Sutter and is an NBC Radio Network production.
69 years ago, March 7th, 1956, X-1 here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Let's check in a moment with Claudia.
Keep your guard up. That's the key slogan of the 1950 National Guard recruiting drive, and it's a slogan as timely as today's headlines. More than ever before, America stands prepared, and the National Guard must recruit approximately 220,000 men as soon as possible. By joining the National Guard, young men will have the advantage of choosing their own unit and preparing themselves for promotion by being in a job for which they are best qualified. Investigate the National Guard now. Help America to keep up its guard.
Now an episode of Claudia. This goes back 76 years, March 7th, 1946.
Your Coca-Cola bottler presents Claudia. Claudia, based on the famous play and novels by Rose Franken. Brought to you transcribed Monday through Friday by your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. Relax. And while you're listening, refresh yourself. Have a Coke. And now, Claudia.
Yes? Who is it? Breakfast, Mrs. Brown. I'll be ready in a moment. Who is it now?
Breakfast, Mrs. Brown.
I'll be down in a moment.
That you, Mama?
No, that's me, David.
Oh, you. Look, breakfast is all on the table, that divine birthday.
Mom, I'll be right down.
I know, I knocked on her door. Oh, it's been a lovely weekend, hasn't it, David?
Mm-hmm. Said I hate going back into town this morning.
Well, at least you'll be back home tonight.
Yep.
It was so good getting back to the farm Friday. I don't ever want to leave. Say, how do you think Mama looks?
Oh, same.
Well, don't you think she looks more rested?
More rested than what?
Than before she looked more rested.
Why should she?
Well, she spent the whole weekend on the farm.
What's so restful about the whole weekend on the farm?
Fresh air, fresh milk, fresh butter, and fresh eggs.
And a few fresh other things.
Still, you know, she ought to look better.
Mama looked all right to me in New York.
Well, that's because you're prejudiced,
Pass me the cream, will you?
Don't change the subject.
Cream's not the subject.
I still think a weekend on the farm did Mama good.
Well, think anything you like.
Well, at least her weekend on the farm did me good. Not having to wonder how she was, whether she was eating properly or sleeping properly.
Oh, you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, don't you?
Don't you think it's becoming?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to see she takes a nap every afternoon all week.
Who? The world?
No, my shoulders. She always says she can't sleep during the day, but she did.
No harm in trying.
David.
Pass me the sugar, one.
David.
What?
You don't mind Mama staying here the rest of the week, do you?
Yes, I mind terribly. You know, I can't stand Mother around.
Well, of course she is your mother-in-law.
Anyway, I'll make an effort to forget.
You know, sometimes even I know why I married you.
Well, don't tell me. Just make me a piece of toast.
Well done?
Rare in the center.
David, can you imagine the baby even recognizes Mama?
Why shouldn't he?
Well, It's very rare for a child that age to recognize his grandmother.
Ooh. Listen to who's busting with motherly pride.
I know, I feel like I look like a pigeon. Oh, darling, it's going to be such a nice weekend. Listen, don't you think you can get home early tonight?
Well, I'll try, Pigeon.
Thank you.
I'll take you and Mama to a movie.
Say, it certainly pays for me to keep Mama around. You never suggest taking me to a movie alone.
Because when we're alone, Mrs. Norton, we don't have to go to a movie.
You know something else?
What?
I love you, too.
I understand that breakfast is being served now.
Yes, in the main dining room, madam.
I'm not too late.
Well, as the French say, put yourself in la chaise. That's
Oh.
occupied French.
Thank you.
It's all right.
Goodness. I thought the whole Bulgarian army was marching past my bedroom. How many times do you think a hungry old woman has to say breakfast is being served?
David's mind and mine work in complete accord, Mama.
Absolutely.
Say, what's that hat doing on your head?
Oh, don't you like it?
Yeah, I love it. But it's rude to wear your hat to breakfast.
Take it off.
I will not. Took me 10 minutes to get it on straight.
It's crooked.
Well, that's when it's straight.
Oh. Well, take it off anyway. We're not so formal you have to wear a hat over your orange juice.
My hair is combed. The hat remains where it is.
Mama certainly looks silly sitting around under that hat, doesn't she?
She looks as if she's going someplace.
Well, as a matter of fact, I am.
Well, that's ridiculous. Where is there to go at this hour of the morning? I will not give you any coffee until you take your hat off.
Well, then I shall get some at the station.
Oh, we don't have to drive David to the station, Mama. He can drive himself.
No, you're not very bright.
Oh, still early. Well, hat or coffee, Mama?
Claudia, stop treating me like an imbecile.
You mean like I am or like you are?
You're fresh.
And have some fresh coffee, Mrs. B.
Oh, thank you, David.
Seriously, though, Mama, what is your head doing under that hat?
Well, it's trying to look respectable.
Well, it doesn't.
Besides, you don't think I'm going to New York and leave my hat behind.
Are you serious?
Certainly I'm serious. Where my hat goes, there go I.
David, did you hear what Mama said?
Yeah, Mama's talking through her hat.
As usual.
I can see there's no use talking sense to you.
None at all.
Well, I had hoped that at this hour of the morning, before the trials and the tribulations of the day had set in, that we could talk sense. But as usual, I was over-optimistic.
My, what a pretty little speech. But in spite of it, Mrs. Brown, you are not going to New York.
But in spite of it, I am going to New York.
You didn't say anything about it before.
Well, I never get a chance to say anything about anything before.
Now, Mama, you can't go to New York all of a sudden like this for no reason.
And what makes you think there's no reason?
Well, what reason could there be?
Well, that's none of your business.
You see, David, she has no reason. Whenever she says none of your business. You only just came, Mama.
I came Friday, and I was shanghaied against my will.
Yes, you put up quite a struggle.
I was forced to stay over a weekend against my better judgment, and now I will not be locked up here like a criminal for the rest of the week.
Will you listen to the way she talks about you, David?
And one last word. The weekend is over, and I am going back to New York.
I dare you to tell me what for.
All right. I'll tell you what for. To resume my peaceful and quiet existence. To enjoy some independence, and to do the things I like, instead of being pushed around all the time.
David, have you been pushing Mama around again?
Yes, he has.
Say, listen, why don't you say something? You've been sitting there like a rock in stony silence.
Rocks don't have mouths.
I thought you told me just a minute ago you wanted Mama to stay.
David's on my side. That's why he's not saying anything. Silence is the better part of valor. David, I shall imitate you from now on.
All right, be silent if you like. Go back to New York if you like. No skin off my nose if you like.
You may assume that I like it, or take it that I like it. Oh, the baby.
Someone is paging you, Claudia.
I just did him.
And he just did.
Oh, well. Guess I better go up and see what's the matter.
Would you like me to go up?
I should say not. You're only a stranger here, Mama.
Well, David, at last you agree with me. Goodness, I expected a tussle. I'm glad it's settled.
Now, I haven't said anything so far, Mother, but...
That's all right, David. This is between Claudia and myself.
No, not entirely. Now that Claudia is out of earshot, I'll take her side. I don't usually agree with her to her face, but behind her back, there's no harm. She won't get conceited.
David, what are you trying to tell me?
Simply that I don't see any reason why you shouldn't stay up here for a few days, as long as you and Claudia enjoy it.
Oh, David, we've been all through this so many times.
I know. It's different than it used to be.
I wonder. Is it?
Yes, I think so.
Every time I come up here, David, we go through this, That's why I didn't want to come.
And that's why I wanted you to come.
You're not making any more sense than Claudia.
She makes sense. So do I. I want you to come to prove to you that our door is open to you for coming and for leaving.
I knew it was. But does Claudia?
Well, Claudia's a different person now, Mother. So much so that I often wonder what gave me the good sense to marry her a year and a half ago.
It took courage, David.
No, I didn't. I'd seen you.
That's a nice thing to say.
Now, don't misunderstand me. She can act just as silly as ever.
Still times when you would cheerfully wring her neck.
No, sure are. I wouldn't love her if there weren't. But she knows how to take responsibilities, just the same.
David, I'm afraid she still feels her responsibilities to me too much.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, you know. You know, I'd give her a whaling if she didn't.
Well, maybe I'm a little touchy. Maybe it's because I know how tightly Claudia can hold on to things she loves.
You know, Mama, I guess I have a little more faith in Claudia than even you have. I think Claudia has learned to love with open hands.
It hasn't been easy, has it?
No, it hasn't. But she's learned it, so don't undignify her, Mother, by treating her as if she weren't able to manage her affections.
David, you've embarrassed me a little.
Well, I didn't mean to. I just wanted you to realize that now there are no more barriers.
Thank you, David. You know, I do love the sound of roosters.
All right, Mama, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll have them crow twice as loud if you'll stay.
And twice as early.
Yep, twice as early.
I'm an independent woman, David. But perhaps I'm not as independent as I like to think I am.
I guess none of us are. Just as well we're not. That kind of independence is for people who have no dependence.
David, I'll stay. I'd like to.
Good. I'll take your hat.
Here it is.
Shh. She'll hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Dry as a bone, David. He wasn't crying about anything. He just wanted some attention. Like some other people I could name.
Well, what took you so long, anyway?
Yeah, sit down. Finish your coffee. It's getting cold.
Every time I started to leave, he gurgled. Mama, you've taken off your hat.
Oh, what's the difference? You're only my family.
You hear that, David?
Mm-hmm.
Well, just for that, you better hurry, or you'll miss your train.
I think I'll have a second cup of coffee instead.
A second cup?
For some reason, I'm very thirsty for coffee this morning.
Well, I don't think we can afford it. Can we, David?
Well, let's see. How much is coffee a pound now? I guess we can let her have a small second cup.
Pass me a small second cup, Mama.
Maybe I'd better change my mind again, David.
Oh, I couldn't stand the strain. Take the coffee, will you?
What I want to know is, Mama, who invited you to stay?
Well, I'll tell you. Nobody invited me to stay.
Oh.
Who told you you were welcome, for heaven's sakes?
Nobody told me I was welcome.
Nobody invited you? Nobody told you you'd be welcome?
Exactly. I decided to stay anyway.
That's your mother-in-law, David.
Yes, that's my mother-in-law. It certainly is.
That's
and
me.
That is typical of her. But just tell me, what can I do?
Well, Mama, I must say you certainly have a nerve.
I certainly have. And believe me, after your performance this morning, it takes all the nerves I have and more to stay here with you two hoodlums.
These broadcasts are adapted for radio by Manya Starr, and the entire production is supervised and directed by William Brown Maloney. Few pleasures can compete with the satisfaction of an evening shared with good friends, talking, listening to music, relaxing. You need go to no trouble preparing for such happy hours. Just be sure there's enough Coca-Cola in the refrigerator so that you can bring it out ice cold, the way everyone likes it. Where there's Coke, there's always the sort of welcome that makes for heartfelt hospitality. Every day, Monday through Friday, Claudia comes to you transcribed with the best wishes of your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. So listen again tomorrow at the same time. And now this is Joe King saying au revoir. And remember, whoever you are, whatever you do, wherever you may be, when you think of refreshment, think of Coca-Cola. For Coca-Cola makes any pause the pause that refreshes. And ice-cold Coca-Cola is everywhere.
"76 years ago, March 7th, 1949, Claudia on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Join us tomorrow for Dr. Kildare, Dragnet, Big Town, and Mr. District Attorney. Thanks for being with us here on this Friday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.